Hi, welcome to Soul Nectar. I'm Carrie Hummingbird, your host, and Soul Nectar is the show whose intent is to inspire you to take the next step on that journey, the next step towards that calling you feel deep within you, the next step towards your soul essence and connection and living and embodying your soul purpose in this lifetime. And I'm super delighted today. I have Teresa de Grosbois with us. And I'm practicing my French. I had
You nailed it. I love it.
5 years of French in high school. And I'm so excited to have her here. So if you don't know who Teresa is, let me just share. Teresa started writing children's books to raise money for a charity that was close to her heart. And after turning those passion projects into best-selling books, she realized that she had a gift that could be harnessed to help create global consciousness shift by empowering leaders with the secrets of creating wildfire through word-of-mouth epidemics. And I want to just share this mission with you because, wow, I mean, this spoke to me so strongly. Her passion is to awaken the consciousness of 1.2 billion people. Now, that is not playing small. That's playing really big. And I think about that, Teresa. Wow. You want to affect global change by shifting the consciousness of 1.2 billion people. And what I love about this is I read your book, Mass Influence. Great book, by the way. I read your book and I felt like this is a woman who's down to earth. Because people say, I want to shift the planet by affecting 1.2 billion people, and you start to go, okay, like there's something going on with this person. They have a little bit of but that's not what you're doing. You actually want to empower a bunch of different leaders to each then influence 1 million people each. And so I didn't do the math on that. So tell me more about that, because that is actually very grounded as a theory in 1.2 billion people.
Yeah, it's actually not only my goal, but it's the goal of the organization I lead, the Evolutionary Business Council. And I apologize for some of the noise. I'm down in Costa Rica for the winter, and we're actually building an intentional community down here of thought leaders and emerging thought leaders, like just really people who want to create change. But we've got like crazy wind going on this morning and bird songs and howler monkeys. So if you're hearing like crazy noises in the background, forgive me. It's just because I'm in paradise right now, and I normally work outside, but I came in and closed the doors and it's not helping. You're probably getting all kinds of sound interference. But really, we created that as a fun goal, believe it or not. I mean, it sounds big, hairy, and audacious, but I really believe that change happens at the more grassroots local level. It happens from everyday heroes really thinking about, how can I step up and lead? How can I step up and create change? And so, we chose the number 1.2 billion because that actually represents the tipping point for planet Earth, right? In mass communication theory, if you can get your innovators and your early adopters, it's inevitable that the rest of society will follow a new way of thinking. And that's generally about 15% of a population. So in the year 2020, 1.2 billion will be roughly 15% of the global population. And so we thought, okay, well, what does 1.2 billion look like? That looks like 1,200 change agents out there teaching transformational principles inside their work. And we show each of them how they reach 1 million people.
I love that.
So the collective reach of the EBC at this point is about 50 million. So we got a long way to go, but we're on an upward journey, right? We're really talking about teaching people that, we all have influence, right? Influence is just, do people know, like, and trust you enough to take action when you suggest something? But mass influence is like a different sport, really. It's do a lot of people know, like, and trust you and take action? And so really what I'm about and what we're about as the Evolutionary Business Council is really helping people understand, how do you play that different sport?
I love this. And as I was reading your book, I was, because one of the things that I was feeling into as I'm doing Soul Nectar, obviously, is my passion Well, the passion is to what? To help inspire women, especially women, millennial Gen X, to take that next step in their development, to listen to the small voice within and act, to actually be the change. And because we need a lot of people waking up on the planet right now to change the shift the way things have been going on our planet. And as I was asking myself the question, it's like, well, what do I really want to do? What am I trying to do with this? Is this about me, like being in front of a camera with a bunch of people? Because that would be really icky. Is that really what it's about? And it's like, no, that's not what it's about. It's in the heart. So what I want to do now is kind of tell a little bit about your background, because I know from reading your book that also for you, this is about the heart. So I would love to hear about your start. Like, share your story, how you got started with this.
Yeah, you know how they say fish don't know what water is? I think a lot of people don't really get what their true gifts are until somebody really points it out to them, And like a lot of people, I didn't get that one of my brilliances was really how to create word of mouth epidemics around things, until I had what I would affectionately call my really bad year. I had a year, and I can laugh about it now because I know it's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
It's so hard to laugh about it when it's happening.
I know, right? And I had a year when, even in the first 6 months of that year, my father had passed away, my marriage had ended, my company had failed, and my personal health was in a tailspin. And I remember a specific day sitting in the condo of my post-marriage breakup. I was sitting in the bathroom in my condo. And I've always been a renovator, so this bathroom is going to be my latest project, And I'm surrounded by tools, and there's literally tears streaming down my face because the only thought in my head is that it's me that needs renovating. And it was such a great moment because that's the moment I made the decision that I was going to be my next project. And so I started doing every self-help course under the sun. I got a lot more serious about my yoga and my meditation, got a lot more serious about my health. I actually went and did an entire certificate in mediation because I've always been a conflict avoider, and I knew I had to get that handled. And, within a couple of years, I had completely altered my life. I had started a charity to build schools in Africa and written 3 kids' books to raise money for that charity, quickly put all 3 on the bestseller list. And then the next really big miracle happened for me because I was talking with one of my best friends, actually Dr. Shaman Training, one day. And I'm actually venting because I'm realizing, being a children's author isn't my love. I love writing kids' books, but I'm not enjoying going around to schools and teaching kids programs. And I'm saying to Sean, God, I'm doing all this work I don't love. And what I really love is I'm helping all these people learn how to become best-selling authors. And that makes no money for me. And she starts laughing and she looks at me and says, honey, when the universe is sending you a flood of something you love, don't you think you should pay attention? And that was another really awesome moment in my life because it was the moment I realized I needed to rebrand myself because I was swimming in water like a fish, not knowing what water was. And my gift really, really is understanding how the energy of influence works. And although I've read a lot of books and educated on it, it is also a natural talent of mine. And so I rebranded myself overnight as someone who works with, people who want to create positive change in the world, thought leaders and emerging thought leaders and everyday heroes, to really understand how do you create a movement? How do you create energy around something?
So I love that. And what I think one of the things I love the most is the statement around you get into your heart and you're getting sent all the things that you love, and it's just getting a flood of things that you love. And so pay attention to that thing. Because I think that we get stuck in our minds about what we think we are. Like I know that I'm a healer, and so I've got, I do a really good job with healings. But this is actually exciting for me. Like this is the thing I love, right? But I want to be of service. And so I think, oh, well, I should go be a healer because I want to be a healer. I like to help people and I want to coach people. And
well,
I really love
this
thing.
Too. Yeah. And I love what you're saying right now. I love your work, by the way. Your book is brilliant. And thank you for writing that. I love how you talk about inner dialogue because that's actually a core principle in influence. In fact, if you guys really want to get influence, go read Carrie's book. Because what's going on between your ears, your negative self-talk is the number one thing stopping you from stepping into your own leadership, right? Because as human beings, good people, everyday heroes, we've all invented something, usually when we were really young, some dominant negative self-talk that tends to get in the way when you want to put yourself out, really step up there when you feel called to lead, right? And in fact, the only people that don't have that kind of negative self-talk tend to be sociopaths, right? They've got inner dialogue of a different sort, right? And so when everyday heroes, good people, don't learn to confront their own negative self-talk and get out there and create change, get out there and step into leadership, whether it's in your organization or your community or even your own family, if you don't do that, what's at risk is we really risk living in a world run by the very leaders that we fear.
We've not getting too political, but we have seen a little bit of that going on in the United States.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Not to get too political, but I want to say that I think that what's really difficult, I think, is when you feel something in your heart that this feels so right, it feels so true, and then you start to go with that, and you hit a little stumble.
Yeah.
Then the mind starts to pick up. And the doubting thoughts, like, well, who am I to do that? There's already all these people out there doing that exact kind of thing. Like for me, there's already Oprah. Like, so why am I bothering? Why are we bothering?
I love that you talk about that in your book too. It's interesting because your book's more around self-empowerment. Mine's like a hardcore business book. And yet there's a lot of convergence in what we teach, right? That's why I love coming on your show. Because here's the thing about influence. Your dreams are scarier to you than they are to anyone else on the planet, right? Because they're your dreams. That's freaking huge. And yet there's no one on this planet more hardwired to step into your dreams than you, because you will be way more passionate about them. You will be way more authentic and compelling to enroll other people to get behind whatever it is that you want to create in the world. And, so really, when you do think about stepping into your own dreams, your negative self-talk is going to try and take you out every time. I should play smaller. I should practice on this little thing. I shouldn't be a speaker. I should just be a coach. Nothing against coaches, by the way. That's not a diss on coaches. But there are a lot of you out there who are not coaches because you love coaching. You're coaches because you think you can't do the bigger thing. And then actually you're inauthentic as a coach.
And
right?
people feel that.
Really
people
feel. Yeah.
They feel the inauthenticity when you're not really doing what you're made to do. And I really feel like when I read your book, I really felt the line of authenticity. I don't know. That's how I feel it. There's like a truth line that goes through every person.
That's a great way to describe it.
There's like this truth line, and the closer you're aligned to the truth within you, the more it resonates as truth with other people around you. There's not that weird dissonance that happens when you're sort of not really aligned with your total truth, or you're hiding part of it, or you're not owning part of it. It's like people can feel that in the field, and they go, well, I really like Carrie, but I'm not so sure, or I really like this, but I don't really feel it. And when you're fully aligned, you're just kind of relaxed. And that's the message I really felt in your book, is just this relaxed place of, I know this is why I'm here. Great. Now I can just get about doing it. I can just get about the process.
And there's a lot of different definitions of authenticity out there. I love describing it as a truth line, because my definition of authenticity is your inside voice saying the same thing as your outside voice. Or another way of saying that is, are your thoughts and your words and your actions fully in alignment? So if you're not stepping into your own passion, your own dreams, you're inauthentic everywhere. Our technical definition of that as humanity is you're schmarmy, right? Because we've all seen those circumstances where somebody's saying, buy this product, it's really great. And you can tell what's going on behind their ears. It's like, I really got to pay my rent, buy the product already. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay, but this is really important, okay? Because when you're following your passion, there is this wobble space where you're not really making money at it yet. But you're really, it's your truth, and you're aligned to it, and you're vibrating there, and it feels right. And then there's like what they call the leap of faith, which is I love that vision of, Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. And he's like, okay, I'm going to walk out on the ledge. I hope it's there. They said it was there, right?
Yeah, the
So,
greatest Harrison Ford line of all time, right? I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along.
right?
It's
So
very
talk about
true.
that.
That's the entrepreneur's journey. That's the change agent's journey. Making it up as you go along to some extent. Not that you don't plan. I mean, I have a business plan. I have a strategic plan. But there's a certain level of feeling your way forward. I love Sheryl Sandberg's book, and Jennifer Huff talks about this a lot. Lean in. It's not about quitting your job and self-harming and putting yourself at deep risk so that you can't pay the rent. It's not about that.
Right.
Okay. So don't hear that in what Carrie and I are talking about right now.
Don't fling yourself off the cliff.
If all you can afford every day is 1 hour to work on manifesting your dreams and being the change that you want to create in the world, stepping into your own leadership, building that business, whatever it is, then take that 1 hour and do it. If all you have is 7 minutes, take the 7 minutes. Right? But what you find is as you lean toward it, other opportunities open up. You'll see more, you'll find out more. Janet Atwood has a great book on this called The Passion Test. And one of the things that Janet talks about is when you get really clear on what you're wanting to create in the world and what your passions are, where you're most authentic, in other words, then anytime you're faced with a choice, it's easy. You just choose the choice that's more aligned with your passions. And pretty soon you're going to find out that you're living a life of great meaning and you're making money at it and you're creating all kinds of opportunities and leadership for yourself. I couldn't have even foreseen that I would be living the life I am now 10 years ago. I couldn't have dreamed it. I get to be a digital nomad. I speak on big stages all over the world.
You're in Costa Rica. I
know we're creating an intentional community down here. If people want to create change, or just, the enlightened gypsies of the world, we're actually creating sort of an enlightened timeshare kind of model, right? So that all kinds of awesome people can come down here throughout the year. How fun is that, And, I couldn't have even imagined that 10 years ago. It's more as I've leaned into my own life, Spirit keeps giving me different downloads and different visions of what needs to get created. And if I can just get really exquisite at getting my own inner dialogue out of the way and stop getting in my own way, as Jennifer Huff talks about a lot, get out of your own way. Then it really, life can become so fun and so exquisite. It's really amazing.
I love that. Oh, you could tell that I was like, yes, yes, yes. Yeah. When I had my own journey, I actually was, before I stepped out as a healer. Now, I would never thought I would have been a healer, right? It's just like you were saying. I would have never thought that would have happened. Craziest dream. What? I was an artist. I was a tech writer. I was healer. Like, where did that come from? Came out of nowhere. And when I knew I had to do it, I was taking my training and everything, and I had a supporting job. But I was doing the typical thing, and I think a lot of people do this. It's like, oh, I've got to work like my exact 8 hours, and I've got to sit at my desk, and I've got to be sure I'm available in case the IM thing opens up and they want to check on me and make sure I'm at my desk. And I've got to put all my energy and focus here for 8 hours because they're paying me. It's so much fear. It's like I was afraid of my laptop. I was afraid of being away from it because, somebody might want me, and then they would know if I was away from it that I wasn't doing my job. And it's all this fear. And I remember being in Peru, and one of my people on the retreat with me was Rochelle Sheik, who's the founder of Koya. And Rochelle just touched my heart. And she says, Carrie, she's like, you're so good at what you do that you can do it in half the time of everybody else.
Oh.
And then you can take that energy that's left over and you can do what Spirit's asking you to do. Take the leap of faith.
Beautiful.
So for me, it was really leaning in, as you were saying. I was leaning into it. I was confronting my fear of leaving my laptop so I could go to a networking meeting and start, like, oh, I hope they don't IM me while I'm at my networking meeting. I'm going to get fired.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
And do you know, by the end, this is terrible truth. By the end, I was working an hour a day.
Wow.
An hour. And they were still giving me bonuses. Like I was doing the best job on the planet. And I thought, this is definitely rose-colored glasses from Spirit. This is crazy. I would fire me, So, but I was doing all of this healing work, and I was leaning in and having faith that I needed to put my consciousness in the direction I was moving, not in the direction I was leaving. And I
Yeah.
think this is pertinent for what you're talking about with people. Take the baby steps, lean in. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've got a great exercise we can give your viewers if you want.
Yes.
You know, and because I know you talk about this in your book a lot. One of the best gifts you can give yourself is to get really familiar with what your inner dialogue is and make friends with it, you know? And so here's your takeaway. For the next 7 days, every night before bed, journal what comes up for you when you think about stepping up to lead, or really stepping into your dreams, or really stepping into that life you really want to live. And just write at night what comes up for you. And see if there's a repetitive theme. Because odds are you had some kind of circumstance in your earliest childhood where you created that theme to make something in your life make sense. You know, and see if you can actually have a conversation with your inner child about that, right? And then here's where the juice of this exercise is. Every day after you journal around this, journal where that helps you and hinders you. Because, you know, my dominant theme I got going on, I'm from Northern Canada, Northern Ontario to be exact. And I'm the youngest of a really big family. So I've often had a dominant theme going on of I'm too small to play with the big kids.
Right? You talk about this in your book.
Yeah. And, you know, so here's the awesome thing though, right? 3-year-old me created that one day in a very, what was for me at the time, an emotionally traumatic experience, you know? And I'm too small to play with the big kids is one of the best gifts I ever gave myself. Because at the age of 3, importance became a really important conversation to me, you know, and it motivated me to become influential. It motivated me to become an expert on influence. It motivated me to become someone who wants to create change in the world and help change agents create change in the world, right? Because I see the importance of importance, right? And so it's not all bad. Your negative self-talk isn't all bad. If you can get really aware of it, and really make friends with where does it motivate you and help you, and where does it hinder you and trip you up, and choose which side of it you want to live on so that you can thank your inner child on a daily basis for creating that inner dialogue, right? Because 3-year-old or 2-year-old you was just trying to protect you in those moments of your early life, right? Then you can get really good at, you know, I like to call it channeling my inner elder. If I'm not sure what to do in a specific circumstance, instead of channeling my inner child, I channel a 90-year-old version of myself, or an 80-year-old version of myself, who's really awesome and sexy, by the way. And I, you know, I let her decide what would she do from the foresight of wisdom, you know, or the hindsight of wisdom, I should say. And, you know, that helps me really integrate my inner child in with all of me, including my inner elder.
I love that you're saying that because, you know, my training is with the shamans, and they taught us that, you know, there is no time, right? Time is all happening at the same time. So actually, you know, in some reality, actually your elder is right there with you right now in the same time, you know, because there is no time. It's quantum, so mind-boggling. But that is a powerful exercise to bring in your inner wisdom, you know, to bring in that part of you that already knows the answer. And, you know, maybe somebody could tap into that idea as their higher self, or, you know, just that older version of themselves. I love projecting forward and saying, somewhere along the line, I figured this out. So let me call that wisdom back to myself through time. I love that.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
So how do you recommend that people, I mean, we're talking about leaning in, we're talking about taking those initial steps, we're talking about eliminating the doubt. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, you've actually got to take a proactive step. Like you actually have to start believing what you're hearing inside of your heart, and distinguishing that heart message from the ego messages that are in your brain. Well, you know, for a lot of people, it's figuring out who do you want to be in the world, right? And so sometimes the first step is figuring out what problem do you solve for the world. And a lot of us think big and grandiose is better. And in a way, it's good to know that you're positioned inside something big and grandiose. But it's really important to understand who specifically do you solve that problem for, and what problem are you solving for them, right? Like when you think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you know, a lot of people think he stood for racial equality on this planet, which he did do.
But when you really look at what problem he solved and for who, he solved the problem of unfair busing for underprivileged African Americans in Montgomery, Alabama. That was the problem he took on. Now, he did it inside of the context of the bigger problem that was going on globally at the time, and therefore he shifted the bigger problem. But he was really clear who his target audience was and who he was doing this for. You know, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that. It's often the local and the grassroots or the very specific that has far greater impact, because the world flocks to the specific. Right? I'm really clear. I might be an expert on influence and I want to create shift with the reach of 1.2 billion people on this planet. But my target audience is speakers, trainers, authors, writers, bloggers, anyone in a one-to-many conversation who's teaching transformational content. And I specifically solve the problem of them, of helping them get deeply related to how influence works, specifically mass influence, and how they create word-of-mouth epidemics around themselves. So I can use all this big and grandiose language, but I'm really clear on the specific problem I solve and for who. In fact, some of my courses are even more specific than that, very specific topics inside of that bigger conversation, right? So think about who your core audience is. If you think your core audience is all women or all women in business, you're playing way too broad. A nice narrow niche might be something like, I serve emerging women leaders in the oil and gas industry with the specific issues they have of breaking the glass ceiling in an industry that tends to be male dominated. That might be an example. Or if you're in the overarching conversation of health, you might pick a specific problem like, I'm an expert in fibromyalgia or arthritic pain, specifically for women ages 50 to 75 or whatever. Now, that doesn't mean you're shutting out everyone else. It means you're declaring who your specialty is. A brain surgeon can still write a prescription for back pain. In fact, we're very grateful to them when they do. So it doesn't mean you turn away everyone else. In fact, other people will feel more lucky that you're still seeing them.
And I love that. Because I want to relate this back to the points that I'm getting from your 30-day challenge, because I've been paying attention to that too. I really like that. And it's the passion piece. I think the reason you need to align it that way is so that you know who you're talking to, because that's your passion. Like Martin Luther King was filled with passion because he was experiencing this problem in his community. And it was something he wanted to shift, you know, so his passion was so strong. And then you talk about the big spark catches quick. Talk about that for a second, because that's the big spark and the wind and give us the whole, I love that.
I name my company Wildfire for a reason, right? I often use the analogy for wildfire for what creates word-of-mouth epidemics. And so the problem you solve for the world is like the spark that ignites the wildfire, right? And big spark catches easy, right? The bigger the problem you solve and the more specific it is, contained, right? Then the easier it is for that epidemic to catch. And then passion is the fuel that ignites the wildfire, right? Because fires need something to burn, and they burn on passion. So the closer you are aligned with your dream, the faster that wildfire will spread. And then the wind that blows the wildfire is simply all those relationships that you have and need with other influential people, because what it comes right down to is you can't make yourself famous. You need other influential people to talk about you the same way they need you to talk about them. And so one of the core habits that highly influential people have is they really understand how to get in deep relationship with other influential people with similar values and similar ideals to them, because that's the wind in the wildfire that really spreads the flames.
And I want to really take a moment to honor the healers that might be on this call and to just send you a little personal message. So this isn't about, you becoming big. This isn't about your, your journey to be known and all of this kind of stuff. That's not what it is. For me, the way I look at it is this is like, we're going to spread a new virus. We're going to spread the virus of love. And so if we're going to spread the virus of love, we got to get comfortable being seen and being big and helping to spread that message by having platforms like this. And so if you feel called to do this, and you're having struggles, you know, with your inner wisdom to say, oh, this might be my ego that's wanting to do this, da, 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 da. Like, put it aside for a second and really take a look at the bigger picture, which is that if we want to shift in the global consciousness, we can't do it sitting in our back room by ourselves. You know, like, we got to actually get out and have conversations with people, and we got to spark passionate discussions like this. And we've got to get comfortable standing in our power and our mission. Right. So like, and I love what you were saying earlier, because it's like pointing back to when you were a child, you had a really traumatic experience inside of, I can't play with the big kids. And that is a pain point, right? That's an owie at the ego level. It's like, ow, that one hurt. And so you found your way out of that. And then what's the first thing you want to do? Help another person who's having that owie, you know, to not have the owie anymore. And as healers, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people not have the owies. And so look at, you know, imagine that you're a connector dot and you're finding all the audience that needs your message of, hey, I figured out how to fix this owie. Why don't you come talk to me? Does that make sense? Anyway,
yeah.
From there, because I know you got more to say about that.
Beautiful. I know that's one of the best analogies I've ever heard. Thank you for giving that, right? Because it's so true. Sometimes your best target audience are people just like you. You know, what pain have you lived through? What problem have you faced in your life? Your best credential for helping other people is that they would know you really get their pain. You really get what they're going through. There is no greater credential than to be able to tell people, I really understand. I've been there. You know, because I really understand. I know what it's like to want to do something important and have zero influence or ability to implement it. I get what that feels like. And it's not fun to have something to say and have no one want to listen to you.
Yeah.
Especially if you really know you've got something to contribute, right? And you know, the reason I really understand influence is because I used to be so freaking bad at it. You know, and I had to learn it because I had this burning need inside me that said, no, importance is important. And I got to understand how to master importance.
But you were doing it with your passion.
Yeah.
You were doing it for other people. And I think that's what got you off of your, speak to that.
Well, a lot of us a lot of us think, oh, I can't possibly want to be influential or important because that would make me egotistical or narcissistic. And it's really easy to get this big jumble of mess of mixing those terms all up, right? And the reality is all of those things are simply tools, and you can put them at service of your own gain, or you can put them at service of the universal good, and that's your choice. I aggressively pursue influence because I think the world needs people who really want to influence change right now. And the interesting thing is, if I can just surrender my own needs and my own wants and just trust that, you know, universe has got a bigger plan for me. And I know I'm going to sound a little woo-woo here, but I really get that your peeps get this.
Oh yeah.
And but when you can really surrender to universe has a bigger plan and step into that, universe looks after you, you know. And like, here's the really cool thing is, if you're not stepping into your own passion and your own dreams, that's really your ego.
Yeah.
That's your ego getting in the way of the universe's plan for you to be a change agent and get out there and create this expansion of heaven on earth, as Jennifer Huff would call it, right? Stepping into influence is not egotistical. Preventing yourself from stepping into influence because you're worried what other people would think, that's
ego.
Yeah.
And it's also self-deprecation. You know,
absolutely.
It's the enemy of self. Yeah. It's the enemy of self-deprecation and thinking you have to stay small.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and pardon me for the soapbox, but this is my passion, right? Like, if the world is calling you, step up. And like, here's the thing. Some of you watching, you know, you were hardwired to deal with people one-on-one. You know that's why you were put here on earth, either as a coach or a nurse or a healer. And I really honor that. You know, some of you, that is your calling, and that's what universe breathed into you. And that is your passion. And if that's the case, keep doing it, you know.
Yeah.
And there's some of you out there that are doing it because your inner dialogue is taking you out. And you know there's a bigger game that you should be playing. And you know in your heart that universe has a much bigger plan for you, and you're getting in your way. You're calling it things like ego or narcissism, or you're worried what other people would think at a very core level. And if that's you, I really invite you to just really look at what you're causing, the self-harm that you're doing by not surrendering to why you were put here. Because not only is that self-harm, but it's harm to humanity. Because maybe you're the one the world is waiting for right now. Maybe you're the one, you know? So take action toward your dream, because until you do, you're just dreaming.
I love that. It's such a powerful message. And, you know, I think we'll end it there because that is a call to action. And I love that. And I hope that just gets everybody riled up to go, yes, I'm going to go do my passion and shine this little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine.
I love it.
Shine your light, baby. Shine your light. So I want to give you an opportunity. I know you have a free gift for us. And so I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about your free gift.
Well, you know, if you really want to learn to master this influence game, I've got a 30-day influence challenge. You can visit massinfluencethebook.com. That's massinfluencethebook.com. And it's just 30-day, 2-minute exercises you do every day, because really influence is as simple as breathing. You know, you thought breathing was hard the first moment you were alive, and it felt really uncomfortable, and you probably cried. And then you mastered the skill of breathing, and you never had to think about it again, except in those really stressful moments in life where a friend or your husband or your partner had to say, honey, breathe. You're not breathing.
I always forget to breathe.
I know, right? And me too. I have to have people remind me every now and then. But influence is a lot like that. It's not a time consumer. It's simply a different paradigm for how you go through life. So do these little 2-minute exercises. They're just little emails, or we have recorded versions you can watch too if you'd rather have recordings. And when you visit that site, massinfluencethebook.com, we'll also send you to the links where you can get a free digital download of my book if you want. There's also links if you'd prefer to buy the hard copy, the Audible. We have links to those there too. But lean in, learn the skill, and learn how to get out of your own way and step into your own dreams, because really the world is waiting for the leaders of tomorrow to step up.
I love that. Teresa, such a blessing. I'm so delighted that we were connected, as you know, with synchronistically, of course. It was a wonderful pleasure to interview you today, and your message is, I know, going to inspire people. So take this to heart, breathe it in, receive your destiny. Be the light that shines in you. Be the light that shines in you. Be the light that shines in you. Blessings to everyone today. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Carrie.
Bye.
Awesome to be here.